What's up, Football Express fans? So I'm very late on the drop. I'm going to hold myself accountable. I haven't been doing what I need to do to put out efficient episodes, and I got to fix that. For those that are listening, it's not a whole lot of people that are tuning in. I need to start holding myself a little bit more accountable on getting these podcasts out to y'all, and that's what I'm going to do. So starting this week, this is the last late drop on the podcast. Starting next week, 12 o'clock, I will have a podcast dropped at 12 o'clock on wherever you get your podcast at, be it Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Amazon, or Amazon Music, wherever you listen to podcasts at, I will be over there. On top of that, a couple of things that are going to continue and a couple of things that are going to change up and what I'm adding. So on Mondays, along with the podcast itself being dropped and on YouTube, I'm going to turn around and drop a video format of the podcast itself. So these podcasts are only going to be ranging between 10 to 15 minutes long anyway. They're not going to be very long. If I do ever have 30-minute long podcasts, what will happen on the YouTube side is I will end up turning them into like multiple 10-minute vids or multiple 15-minute videos. And that's how the podcast itself will be turned into video format over on YouTube. On top of that, I'm also going to be dropping the 2 or 3 times a week on my TikTok and YouTube shorts of my evaluation videos. It's my pre-spring evaluation. It's where I'm going to be talking about certain players, certain positions, certain school positions, how certain coaches are looking, if there's anything new coming in that's going to impact spring, this, that, and the third. So I'm going to have a bunch of those videos come out. They're going to come out about 3 times a week. I'm going to post them on TikTok. I'm going to post them on YouTube. Additionally, I'm going to keep the trend up of my transfer portal reactions, where I'm going to be reacting to different players committing, and I'm going to do that all the way up to spring. So the wording might be a little differently depending on exactly when I get to them. But once spring comes, that's when spring evaluation will start. And once spring ball, my spring games happen, that's when I'm going to start dropping evaluation on teams, position groups, and we're going to leave the transfer portal reactions alone. But the transfer portal reactions, I know it's going to say transfer portal, but that's just me reacting to where certain players go. That's going to stay there. I just want to clarify that up. So you can go over to Instagram, you check out the community page on YouTube. That's where those posts are going to be at. And additionally, the very last thing I got to add in, I'm over on Substack. It's an app that you can download on Google or iPhone. You can download it from the App Store or from Google Play. What it is, it's a way for me, it's another outlet for me to post my podcast alongside articles and blogs and little side notes that I can post throughout the day and throughout the week. A way for me to actually interact with y'all a little bit better while giving out my knowledge of the game that we love. So that's what I'm going to be doing with Substack. So please download that. Check that out. Obviously, you can get me anywhere on social, YouTube. All you got to do is type in FBX, Football Express. You'll see my logo. You can do at FBX Express. That's FBX PRESS. That's how you're going to find me on all social medias. I'll also make sure I'll start leaving my social descriptions in the descriptions, or my socials in the descriptions below. So I kind of drug this out a little bit. I don't want to drag it out anymore. Let's go ahead and get into the actual conversation of today's podcast. All right, now let's talk about the college football playoff. So the Big Ten and the SEC failed to come to an agreement about how they're going to expand the 12 team. They're going to stay with 12 for 2026. Not a lot's going to change, but some things will change. Each Power 4 conference, or each Power 4 conference champion, will be guaranteed a spot regardless of where they rank at the end of the season. So that means Duke winning the ACC, they are 8-5. They will now qualify, basically bumping out the JMU and the Tulane situation. What they're trying to do, for what I see, is just make it where Group of 5 don't get an opportunity. And I personally find that to be ridiculous, because I'm sorry, if for Duke, for example, is 8-5 and they win the ACC, they're clearly not better than some of the other conference champions in college football. Like Tulane won the American. Tulane beat Duke in the regular season. Like, you have that head-to-head matchup there. So obviously a Group of 5 champion can beat one of the worst Power Four champions. It's not out of the ordinary. I'm not saying they can go win the Natty. I'm not going to say they can make close games. I'm not going to say blowouts won't happen. But clearly, Tulane was better than Duke. And if they were to match up at the end of the season, I would say you will probably get a similar outcome. If Duke would have played JMU, I'm pretty sure you would have gotten a similar outcome. That's just how the Duke team was structured. Okay, Duke was a middle of a pack team. Them making it to the ACC was a stroke of luck. Yes, maybe some of the tiebreakers need to be adjusted for the ACC, but that's not the conversation we're having right now. What we're having is the 12-team playoff. Duke does not deserve an 8-5 team, regardless if they're from the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC. They do not deserve a guaranteed spot in if you got 5 losses on your resume. I don't know why, just because you're a Power 4 team, you feel like you deserve to get in. That's not like they're talking about, well, we're not going to give the group of 5 a playoff spot because it's not for deserving. It's about actually, or it's not about participation. It's actually about earning yourself in. Well, if you have 5 losses on your resume despite winning a conference championship, obviously you haven't earned the right to be in a playoff. Okay, right now they're giving out participation trophies, and that's the whole reason why people don't want the group of 5 in there, is because we're not handing out participation trophies. So that ruling in itself is ridiculous. The second ruling that they added in is now, as long as Notre Dame finishes anywhere inside the top 12, they're guaranteed a spot. Just because, as we've seen, this was something that was in works, I want to say, from last season when they were doing it all, but they didn't really enforce it or go ahead and implement it, or it was already signed and it had to be delayed a year. Either way it goes, it's getting implemented this year. Notre Dame, they finished 11 this year. They would have guaranteed been put into playoffs. I don't think that changes much of anything, because when you look at the field, I think Notre Dame was a little bit more fraudulent than anybody else. Like, I think Notre Dame might not have been as fraudulent as A&M, but they would have been about like Ohio State. Like, they haven't been proven. They haven't been battle tested. And the games that they have played that could have tested them, they couldn't come out. Like, Ohio State couldn't come over Indiana. Notre Dame early on in the season couldn't come over teams like Miami and Texas A&M. So Notre Dame, I think that's a ridiculous spot. Notre Dame has to be top 10. If Notre Dame makes it to the top 10, I'm comfortable with them staying in the playoffs. If they make it into the top 8, cool. But the thing of it is, the committee's got to start stepping up, and the committee's not going to step up because I believe some of the Notre Dame personnel, like president or someone in the Notre Dame office, is inside of the committee. So they're not going to change the way Notre Dame gets represented. I would like them to. Like, that's one of the ways you could fix this entire debacle, is by making all teams go to a conference. But they're not going to do that. They care too much about money. They care too much about, it's really money. They just care too much about money. And it's gimme, 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 and I have better push than you do. Right now, and I'll say this, right now, the Big Ten and the SEC is also ruining things. Like, these two are playing for lead horse. You know, they're trying to see who has bigger weapons in the race. And the ACC and the Big 12 are being pushed down. And see, honestly, you shouldn't even call it the Power 4. You should really just call it the Power 2 in the group of 7, because it's the Big 10 and the SEC. That's literally it. And you have the ACC and the Big 12. So what I would say, the first thing that needs to be done is taking a look at all your conferences. Because like I said, it's basically the group of 7 and the Power 2. And the way I would do it is I would structure all conferences where you have, I would honestly say, no more than 14 teams per conference. I think it's very realistic to make that move. I think we're sitting right at around, we're going to have maybe, I'll say if we have 140 schools, 14 teams a conference, it's 10 conferences. You have the Pac-12 coming back to give you another Power 4 or Power 5 conference again. You have all 5 of the group of 5 conferences. That gives you 10 conferences. Like, every conference, 14 games, or 14 teams. From there, you schedule 8 games. If you schedule 8 games out of 14, that means you played a huge chunk of your in-conference, or your huge chunk of your conference games, giving you 3 spots available to schedule one of the other conference. Or what you could do is extend the season. Probably you go from 12 games to 13 games in the regular season, and then you play 4. But Yes, that's what I'll do. I would make it to where right now, instead of getting into all the extra, we're gonna make it very simple. 140 schools. I think there's not quite 140, but 140 schools. You have 10 conferences, 14 teams per conference, 8 conference games for every conference. You have 3 open spots. You will then schedule 3 non-conference games, and you would schedule them based off of bracket performance. And the way that would look, and if I can make a video and a podcast breaking this down, or y'all can ask me individually. But the way it would look is you create a tier list of where I think European soccer does this a lot. But you would create a tier list where you look over the last 3 or 4 years of performance and you go, okay, Georgia, you have a win rate of 83%. That means your 3 non-conference games have to be scheduled against teams with a 75% win rate or higher, meaning that they can't play teams like Tulane or Western Kentucky or no, they could play Tulane, but they can't play teams like Sam Houston and FCS school. Like they would have to play teams 75% or higher. And then if they did schedule an FCS school, they would have to schedule an FCS school that has matched their win percentage over the last 3 years. Like you have to start making criteria lists on how you schedule your 3 non-conference. And then like Kennesaw State, let's say Kennesaw State, one of the big top schools, and their win percentage is like 78%. They can obviously schedule higher, like that's always an option. But then you go look at a school like Duke, for instance. Let's say Duke's sitting at about 74. Well, Duke just won the ACC. You're Kennesaw State. You're going to go schedule Duke because they are a current ACC champ. So you want to schedule them on your next season. One that will eliminate hearsay and any debacle on scheduling and, oh, they're scheduling cupcakes. They're not. I mean, they scheduled according to the bracket, according to the regulations, and how that team that they face performs in season, that's not on them. That team over the last 3 years was winning 75% of their games. If for some reason they were to go 0-12, that's not on the team that scheduled them because over the last 3 years, they were a very dominant team. So I think that's one way to fix it. You'll have the 14 team conference. You'll have the 8-game conference. You'll have the 3-game non-conference. You'll have the structuring and the relegations and laws on what non-conference games you can play. One of those is winning percentage. You'll have, I'll say over the last 4 years, what their winning percentage was. That gives you the opportunity to schedule them, and you have 3 spots. Another option is extending it to where you play 4 non-conference and keep that winning percentage thing in there. And then what you would do with the playoffs, now that you have 10 conferences, make a 16-team playoff system. You will have 10 bids. Throw 10 bids in, all 10 conference champs. Because if you want to start doing this where you have automatic bids and you got a 5-loss ACC or Big 12 or this, that, and the third, and you want to throw them in there, well, now you have 16-team conference or 16-team playoff. You have 10 conferences. Every conference gets a bid. If you win the conference championship game, you're in. From there, you have 6 at-larges. And look, if you're an SEC school and you can't win with that, Big 10 school and you can't win with that, 12 ACC, Pac-12, that's on you. You will throw your best guy at them, and you will have 6 at-larges. So, and then the next thing you should do after structuring that all out, Notre Dame's got to go to a conference, so there's no auto bid for them anymore. You have a structured schedule coming out for every single conference across college football. No more of this independent scheduling. You have to unify something at some point. You got to create structure at some point. So structuring conferences, structuring schedules will then help improve the playoff system. By doing away with independence will help improve the playoff system. By increasing the season, so just go ahead and have week 1 and week 0 will formulate for a better overall season. You will move the transfer portal to the end of the season, so transfer portal will open up. I would say transfer portal should open up right there after semifinals. So you'll have quarterfinals, and then you will have the national championship game. So right after right after quarters, you should open up the transfer portal because by the time you get to your last 4 teams, nobody else is jumping ship. That goes along with firing coaches and hiring coaches. You can fire coaches whenever, but in the terms of opening season for hiring, that will come at the end of the season, and then you will make tampering laws where if If you're currently in contract with school, you cannot be in negotiations to go elsewhere. Same thing for players. You'll create tampering laws. Like those are things that are going to have to be implemented in order to create structure. Oh man, I can go on about this for days, but I don't want to carry this on for too long. I'll probably end up bringing this up later on in another podcast, but for right now, I'm going to end it there. I want to drop some more videos here and there, just expanding on what I'm saying. But like always, check out this on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast at. Check out the social medias. I'll have them in the description, and we're going to be talking more football. I'll see y'all in the next one.